As writers, we sometimes cling stubbornly to our routines. And although these routines may allow us to stay productive, could such rigidness be holding us back? Personally, my routine is so fixed that you can predict what I'm doing any day just by looking at the time. And I don't want this structure to become a crutch. So I decided to get completely out of my comfort zone and try out the routine of one of the most flexible and prolific writers of our time, Margaret Atwood. Having written across genres in poetry and prose, and on paper, typewriters, and even on her hand, if nothing else suitable can be found. She's always looking to learn new things, see the world from new perspectives, and experiment with her craft. And she has more than a few things to teach me about being flexible. So today, I'm going to see what I can learn from adopting Margaret Atwood's writing routine. So Margaret Atwood likes to start off her routine first thing in the morning for her, which is writing at 10. She gets up, she eats some breakfast, drinks some coffee, and then she gets into writing. So I'm here a little bit early in the kitchen before we get started at 10 so that I can prepare some breakfast, get eating, and then get to writing. So I currently have 2 POVs in my novel, but both of those basically share the same settings. So I want to use my writing today to find a potential third POV. And when asked how you choose who will tell your story, Margaret Atwood said, "Learn by doing. Pick a likely candidate and start off." So that is exactly what I'm going to be doing with this third POV. So let me just finish up the rest of my breakfast here and then we'll get on to writing. When Margaret Atwood writes, she has her dedicated space. There's mine. She has her pen that glides. And then she has her paper with wide lines on it. Are these wide lines? Seriously asking. So one of the ways Margaret Atwood learns about characters is by asking herself a bunch of different questions about the character. So before I start writing scenes with this character, I'm asking him questions and having him write the answers back to me in first person. So I've got about a page and a third so far. And as you can tell, the handwriting, well, it's not very good. But actually something that Margaret Atwood talked about was that she likes to write really quickly, not worrying about the handwriting at all. So I've been trying to do that as well as I'm writing here to start with. All I was doing here was basic monologue just to get a better idea for who this character is. And actually it worked out really well. I feel like I understand him so much better. I have some good ideas about the conflicts that he has inside of him and in his life and what he would struggle to face. And it gave me the idea for a scene to write. And that's perfect because Margaret Atwood is a discovery writer through and through. She says that her approach to writing is just about jumping in and starting swimming. So now that I have the seed of an idea for a scene with this character, I'm going to get started on that and see what I can figure out. I'm going to learn more about this character and see if I do want him to become a main character in this story. I'm realizing that this is really not doing what I expected it to do. I thought that this routine, which is almost the opposite of my own, would make me feel like I was being pushed out of my comfort zone. But just writing on paper, as opposed to writing on the computer, doesn't really feel like it's doing that. So you know what? I'm going to change things up a little bit and really take this to the next level. You see, one of the things that makes Margaret Atwood different from a lot of other writers is her flexibility. And specifically, I'm talking about her ability to roll with the punches and not to need the perfect circumstances to be able to write. You know what I'm talking about. The comfortable house, the perfect routine. You see, Margaret Atwood has written while she's traveling before, and she actually began The Handmaid's Tale while on a fellowship in West Berlin. So to really do this routine justice and actually get out of my comfort zone like I intended, I'm going to be getting out of the house. So I'm ready to go. Let's get on the road and I'll tell you where we're going in a bit. One amazing quote I found from Margaret Atwood is, "If you're waiting for the perfect moment, you'll never write a thing because it will never arrive. I have no routine. I have no foolproof anything. There's nothing foolproof." Similarly, in an article from The New Yorker, Rebecca Mead shares some clues about Margaret Atwood's flexibility as an author. Unlike many writers, Atwood does not require a particular desk. arranged in a particular way before she can work. There's a good and bad side to that, Margaret told her. If I did have those things, then I would be able to put myself in that fetishistic situation, and the writing would flow into me because of the magical objects. But I don't have those, so that doesn't happen. The good side is that Margaret can write anywhere, and does so prolifically. I have made it to a trail called The Priest, and the reason why I decided to come is because, well, two reasons really. The first is that hiking is about as close as I can get to travel in last minute circumstances. And second, Margaret Atwood says that when she's writing, she likes to get 10,000 steps a day in, and this trail is 9 miles. So we'll definitely be getting our 10,000 steps. There's also multiple places along the trail to stop, sit down, and write. Let's just continue until we get to the first place to stop. When asked how she sets her writing goals recently, she said,
"So many pages is usually how I do it. So not so much time. And that's motivating, because if you write the number of pages that you think you should be writing that day, you can then goof off and watch really silly murder mysteries."
At that point, I'd written about 2 1/3 pages, and my goal for the day was 5. And as far as the murder mysteries, I wasn't so sure. Things are coming along well with this character. I'm really getting a better sense for his voice. Most of the time, you want to write characters who have a lot of agency, but I think at the beginning of the story, I don't want this character to have as much agency in his life, and I would like to have him grow in agency over the course of the story. Also, I have him being somebody who doesn't really fit into the culture of the East as much. He's not quite so militaristic. He's very good at archery, he's very good at hunting, but he doesn't really like that direct confrontation. He also doesn't really like the idea of hurting other people, potentially killing them. So we're starting off in this scene with him actually in a battle, definitely out of his element. Long story short, the battle is about to begin. The first scene was like the build-up, and this next scene is going to be the actual fighting. We'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting. So let's get going. Let's continue this hike. I think I'm more than halfway, so making great progress with the writing and with hiking, but we got to continue. By this point, I'd already written 3.5 pages and felt I was developing a much better understanding of this character. And this parallels a quote I read about how Margaret Atwood sees character. She said, "Which comes first, the character or the story? There is no such thing as first, because a person is what happens to them. So a novel is characters interacting with events. Characters don't just exist in isolation. You're finding out who they are through how they interact, through the decisions they make, through how other people treat them, and through how they react to how other people treat them." That's down a hill. It's super steep. So I just wrote another solid bit of this second scene. I think I'm about halfway through the second scene. I've gotten to the conflict, and now all that's left is to make things go downhill even more and get to the unexpected outcome at the end. I always love writing these battle scenes, honestly, so it's kind of just fun. And it's really bringing out this character's, first of all, desire not to be around killing, and second of all of the rumors he's heard about the people from the South and the strange weapons that they have, what we would call guns. I've only got a little bit more to go in the writing, and also only a little bit more to go in the hiking. I'm about half a mile away, I think, from the actual peak. So I'm just gonna keep going, and I'll get up there and finish this scene. I'm gonna be honest, as I approached the summit, my legs were feeling beat up, and I was tired of writing on paper. I was trying to be positive, but knowing I had to go all the way back down the mountain made the summit feel less like the end and more like the start. But after doing so much research on Margaret Atwood, one trait I admired of hers was her persistence. The fact that it took 16 years of writing while working other jobs before she could go pro. 16 years and never giving up. And with that thought running through my mind, there was no chance I was going to give up. Yeah, I think we're just about there. And yes, we are. Awesome. And after admiring the view and drinking some water, I knew it was time to get to work. So I just finished writing this second scene, and it was a lot of fun, honestly. It definitely turned out very poorly for the people from the north, and that's the sort of thing that I want to be able to show from this character's perspective. I want to use that to build up the tension and basically the stakes of the journey that those other two are taking. Because if they don't succeed, then the people from the south are going to wipe them out. And I want to be able to show that through another perspective. I'm not sure if it's going to be this character, but it might be some sort of rendition of this character, because scenes like this battle, are exactly what I want to be able to write. As far as the actual writing routine, writing by hand, writing in different situations very flexibly out of my normal, zone of focus and creativity, this actually turned out pretty well. I think writing by hand for me is a little bit more of a zeroth draft sort of technique, because it enables me to write very quickly without stopping. When I have the delete button so readily available, it's very easy to just press delete. But when you're writing like this, you can cross stuff out, but it just doesn't feel as natural as just tapping that delete button. So I think it's really good for that purpose. Margaret Atwood doesn't use it for that exact purpose, but when she's transferring over to the electronic version, she does touch up things a little bit and improve it. So this does kind of serve as a, zeroth draft for her, although I'm sure it's much cleaner than than my writing. So now I'm gonna head back down the mountain and back home, and then we'll do the last part of Margaret Atwood's routine. As I hiked down the mountain, I found the journey was much easier with gravity on my side, and I felt grateful to have pushed myself to try something so different. Because in getting outside of my comfort zone, I learned how writing with pen and paper may be useful for zeroth drafting, and how asking characters questions can make them come alive. As writers, we all have our own very individual processes that we develop through personal experience. But if we do the same things every day, can we really expect to learn anything new?